Hello everyone, Jared here, and in today's video we are heading to a new city, Xi'an. And here is a map of everywhere we have been so far on our travels. So now, let's go ahead and continue our trip on the train ride to Xi'an.
We have just left Luoyang, and now we are heading to Xi'an. Almost done being sick, finally, after a week. And we also just got some snacks.
So this is the first of the snacks, and because the audio unfortunately was rather poor, all I really say here is that the package appears to state that what I'm eating is some kind of rice cake.
Crunchy, hollow, little sweet. It'll do.
However, the snacks only get worse over time.
More sour than I was expecting. So this last one is beef. Alright. Let's see how these little beef cubes are. They scare me a little bit. I think it expired. Alright. Yep, not a fan.
And so, after the disappointing snacks, we continued on the path to Xi'an. And one thing that we weren't expecting to see outside of the windows was that in the distance, going parallel to the train tracks, was the Yellow River. It was nice to see something other than just farmland for a change. Anyways, after about an hour and a half train ride, we end up at the train station in Xi'an before deciding to take the subway to the hotel. And just like everywhere else in China, we have to carry our luggage up the steps because escalators apparently only go one way in a lot of China's cities. But we quickly drop things off at our hotel before we go exploring the city and what it has to offer. More so than almost any other city in China, Xi'an has a unique mix of both the new and the old. And for once, rather than speaking too much about it, I think what I'm going to do instead is just let you see what the city looks like. What you see behind me in this video is Xi'an's bell tower, and also the city's famous drum tower.
Behind me right there is the drum tower of Xi'an, right next to the center of the city.
Both the bell and the drum towers are complementary to one another, and while the bell tower is struck at dawn, the drum tower is struck at sunset at the end of each day. But what I'm going to highlight next happens to be close to both of these locations, also in the heart of Xi'an's old city. This of course being the Muslim Quarter. Of all the places that I went on this trip, the Muslim Quarter had the most foreigners out of anywhere else on the trip that we encountered, at least. As you can see, it's absolutely packed, full of people everywhere, with individuals crowding up the food stalls, of which there are a great variety. It's a cacophony of sights and sounds that's easily the most crowded area in the entire city. With how commercialized this area has become over the years, it's hard to know exactly how much of it is authentic versus how much is just something that's put on for show. But there is little doubt that it has become a major tourist attraction in the heart of the city.
As you can see by what's going on behind me, there's plenty of different places for you to eat all the different special snacks from Xi'an.
And if you want to find what's good in this area and try all the unique delicacies to Xi'an, then it may be better for you to do some research before coming into this area. Otherwise, you'll be taking a gamble. But I suppose that's some of the fun of this as well. Who knows, maybe you're someone like me and when you're here, you're actually not that hungry. It's still just as entertaining to walk around the street and look at what everyone's spending their money on. It may be hard for you to resist actually getting something here to try, since there is such a wide variety of options for you. They even bring snacks from different cities across China, such as this smelly tofu, or chou tofu, which you can try if you're not able to go anywhere else that may have it on your trip. Everyone should dare to try eating chou tofu at least one time. One of the most famous street foods, or at least my favorite, in Xi'an, happens to be this one here, known as ruojiamua, known in English as the Chinese hamburger. Now, you can find this with beef, but it's also quite common to find it with things that are a little less kosher, like pork as well. Regardless of what meat you choose, it'll end up chopped up and put inside of 2 fresh and crispy phyllo dough buns. If you come to Xi'an and there's any one particular snack that I recommend you try at some point, it's definitely this. But as a heads up, make sure that you can trust the sanitation of where you're getting it from first. You don't want to regret it. Food poisoning is a very common occurrence from street food in China, and even if you think you're safe, you may want to bring medication just in case. Aside from the rojiamo, there's also biang noodles, as well as other plenty pita-like breads that look so beautiful it's actually kind of heartbreaking to think that you're going to be tearing it apart after all the effort that it appears went into making these. There's also plenty of things that maybe you wouldn't be quite so adventurous to try once you see it in person. But if you're someone brave and you want to try something unique, then here are some options for you. And in most of these places, I hardly ever see anyone actually eat all of these things. But here, I was able to find at least one person who did. There are plenty of trash cans, as well as cleanup crews that go around the street constantly trying to make sure that everything is picked up. And occasionally I'd see some people take some sticks out of the trash cans and I'd be wondering why. I can only imagine how much work it takes to maintain this area.
This street just goes on and on and on. You could spend hours here and probably just eat.
Make sure you come here with an empty stomach, as there are lots of delights to be had. And plenty of these stalls all try to have unique ways of standing out from one another, just to draw you in with the hopes of getting new customers. Anyways, we spent most of the afternoon and evening here until it went dark, and we decided it was time to go back to the hotel for day 2 in Xi'an. And can you guess what we did on our first full day in Xi'an? I'll give you this one image to guess real fast. It probably won't be very hard to figure it out.
First hospital was Nanjing, second one was Xi'an. Still have this sickness, not going away easily. Maybe I'll be able to do this in every major city on the trip.
Yes, yet again, my throat was acting up and we had to go to the hospital because the medicine that I got in Nanjing clearly wasn't enough to get rid of whatever it was that I had. So we went into what I believe was the First People's Hospital. Anyways, it was very close to our hotel. We paid a small fee at the desk. They took us back to see a doctor really fast. And then I got to do some testing. I kind of wished that they'd used gloves, but it didn't bother me too much. Anyways, after a quick blood test and waiting less than half an hour for the results, we brought the results to the doctor. He gave us a prescription and we went to go pick it up. You have a window dedicated to Western medicine, and on the right is traditional Chinese medicine. So this was the story of my first full day in Xi'an. I ended up staying in bed, just watching TV, looking at things on my phone, and also we called up a family friend to make sure that we understood exactly how to take the medicine. The last thing that I wanted to do was take the medicine and not actually be taking it correctly. So once that was cleared and out of the way, my sickness was pretty much gone. I felt much better, and it would be a lot later on the trip before I had any kind of sickness again. So while I was resting, my father went out back to the Muslim quarter and decided to head off into one of the side paths, which led to Xi'an's Great Mosque, or the Daxuexishang Mosque, which has been around since at least the 700s, which is still used as an active place of worship today. The mosque complex is filled with courtyards that somehow managed to shut out all the sound from the surrounding city. And because of that, I don't think I've ever heard any place as quiet in the center of a city in China quite like this mosque. The absolute silence makes this place the ideal escape from the bustling sounds of the city outside. And it's clear that this is a very popular place for students who need a quiet place to study, or perhaps, if you are an art student, use this area to have a quiet place to sketch. As you can see, when my father was here, there were plenty of different art students sitting around in the numerous courtyards, taking advantage of the peace and quiet, the open space, and the wondrous old architecture. Perhaps one of the most puzzling things about the mosque is that you'll notice some areas look like they were incredibly recently refurbished, while other parts have paint peeling off and look as though they haven't been renovated in many decades. Some of the chambers are filled with furniture that's really reminiscent of the Yuan Garden furniture in Shanghai. Even the windows are rather intricately designed. But unfortunately, there's not much to explore inside, and instead, if you go here, most of your time will be spent in the courtyards outside. As for the main worship hall of the mosque, this is where those renovation details that I mentioned before come into play. Looking at the pillars right outside the main worship room, you can see that they've had their fair share of wear and tear over the years, and could really use some renovation. But perhaps one of the reasons that they haven't renovated it is because there might be some kind of old charm to the place that really gives gravity to the centuries of history under which the mosque has survived. And although it's a little weathered, the mosque still manages to remain standing tall as one of Xi'an's highlights. And next, it was back to the heart of the city and out towards the outside of the city wall. But first, he had to have a bite to eat. And as he'll let you know now, food in this area can be a little more expensive depending on what you're going for.
On three corners around here, they have 3 KFCs and 2 McDonald's. By the way, you can expect to probably pay $7 for a meal around here. So it's one of the more expensive ways to eat. You can sit down and have real food inside a restaurant for those prices.
So after bringing back food to the hotel, eating, and then heading back out, my father went under past the city wall and came out into a large park area as the sun began to set over the city. And once there, out in front of the wall, he came upon a sight that neither of us knew about. Apparently, after the sun sets in Xi'an, there's a show that takes place right outside of the main gate. Apparently, there's a large light show and people dress up in traditional costumes. But at the time, despite how hard I looked, I couldn't really find much information about this event. Maybe you'll have better luck if you try to look it up instead. Anyways, despite not knowing about this show beforehand, my father took videos of various performers that were getting ready and heading to their locations. The costumes are bedazzling, and there are many different varieties, but where they ultimately end up going is a little bit of a mystery to us. Because shortly after filming what you see here, my father, as well as many other individuals who were around this area at the same time, were slowly pushed out of this area and pushed back further and further and further until eventually none of them could be in here for filming. And so he had to find a new location to figure out where he would film this from. Ultimately, aside from just a few seconds glance that you see here, we weren't able to see much of what the performance involved. But one of the great things that you are able to see from this area is the contrast between the old city and the new, traditional China and modernized industrial China, as well as a great night scene of a city glowing with lights. Xi'an has really changed over the last decade since the last time that I was here, but I'll just have to tell you more about that in the next video. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed this first part of our time in Xi'an, and that you come back and join us again for the next one, when we go up on the city wall and explore some other locations around the city. Goodbye! Thank you again for watching this video. If you liked it, please give a thumbs up, and also comment down below what you thought about the video. Also, please subscribe to the channel, and share this channel with others, so that my channel can continue to grow. And hopefully I'll see you next time.